Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our public informational meeting on the Epiphany Creek Stormwater Filter Project. We'll start off with some brief introductions and then a real short presentation on what the proposed project is. And there'll be plenty of time for questions and also an opportunity for feedback. We'd love to hear your thoughts, take down any comments or concerns you have. So with that, my name is Justine Dauphiné. I'm with the Coons Creek Watershed District. I'm the water quality coordinator. We are going to be the lead on this project. Here with me from the district today is John Jenke, our operations coordinator. He'll be overseeing all the construction and the maintenance, and he'll be the day-to-day guy out in the field you see. And we also have Maura Hearn, our summer internship, first public meeting, very exciting. We are a partner with the city of Coon Rapids on this. Here with the city is Mark Hansen, the city engineer. And then we have enlisted the help of Stantec as our engineer on the project for design and construction oversight. And we would not be able to do this project without funding with a large state grant from the Clean Water Fund in the amount of $345,000. And the Watershed District is making up the rest of the project. So there's no direct costs to the local citizens, no assessments, no city tax contribution. It's grant funded and district funded. So with that, before we get into the project details, I just have kind of a one slide introduction on what the Watershed District is in case you're not familiar with us. So what we are, we're a local special purpose unit of government responsible for really all things water management. From quantity, ensuring drainage for our active agriculture, also in flood control and protection, from the quality of the water, both the level of pollutants in the water as well as the habitat for our native species, and then making sure that the water supports recreation. So we're responsible for all these things in a defined area shown up on the map there. It's 107 square miles. You see it has kind of a funny boundary. And that's because it's defined by how the water flows on the land. Basically, any rain or snowfall that hits the ground in this area eventually flows to the Mississippi River down by the Coon Rapids Dam or in Fridley. And that kind of defines our border there. So we have parts of 7 cities, all of Coon Rapids. So zooming in on the kind of the project area for the purpose of this meeting, that is the Epiphany Creek, which is one very small tributary compared to the rest of our hundreds of miles of streams and ditches you see on the map. It's part of our largest stream, which is Coon Creek. That drainage area is shown in yellow on the map. And it's just about 1 square mile, so it's about 1% of our area. But why we are interested in Epiphany Creek, shown in the red, is because it flows into Coon Creek, and Coon Creek does not meet federal and state standards for the Clean Water Act for both to support our aquatic life or for safe recreation. And Epiphany Creek is one of our priority areas because it's in a location of Coon Rapids that was developed in the 70s and 80s. So that was a time before there were stringent stormwater rules. You know, in the middle of the district and the northern parts that have developed in the 90s and the 2000s and continuing today, we now have to meet pretty stringent standards with protecting wetlands and building storm ponds and rain gardens and storing your water on site, you know, making sure you're not creating downstream flooding problems or degrading water quality. But when this area was developed, those rules didn't exist. So a lot of the water that falls on your roofs and sidewalks and streets just goes directly into the storm sewer and directly into the creek with very little treatment. There are a couple ponds in this area. And that's just a picture of Epiphany Creek. If you're not familiar with it, very small, a few feet wide, you know, kind of meanders through folks' backyards, up by Coon Rapids Public Works, through some wetlands. That's what it looks like. So there is a need to address this urban stormwater to reduce both the nutrients and bacteria in this fully developed area of our watershed district, including Epiphany Creek. So how do we do that? Through stormwater management, which is really a combination of a bunch of things kind of working together. A big part of that is our permitting program, you know, regulating development, all new development or any redevelopment, kind of bringing any changes to the land up to today's standards, which we kind of talked about. Another thing we do is through public education. educating residents on what we call best practices. You know, every little thing every homeowner does, from irrigating to fertilizer use to car washing to picking up after your dog's waste, impacts our local waters. There's also a lot of city programming, things like street sweeping and cleaning up the catch basins, which has a big positive impact on our water. There's also volunteer programs. You can adopt your local storm drain and clean that out and kind of help between city sweepings. And then lastly, there's deliberately constructing what we call these structural stormwater practices, things like building new ponds and new rain gardens. And in this case, a treatment practice called the stormwater filter. So that's what those pictures are of on the right. These are 2 of our 3 local filters that exist. So this will be the 4th one in our area. At the top, that's on a creek called Pleasure Creek up in Blaine. And the lower one is in Woodcrest Park in Coon Rapids, just east of here. And that is the type of practice we're proposing for Epiphany Creek in Robinson Park. So to zoom in on the project area for this filter, it's highlighted by the green rectangle there. So it's on the north part of Robinson Park. The project will not take up that whole area, but it will be located kind of centrally within that rectangle. The filter we're proposing to build is about 10,000 square feet. So it's, 50 feet wide by 200 feet long, not a huge area. And what this filter consists of are kind of 3 different types of media. So the majority of it is just clean sand. And then we mix in a couple things, namely biochar and iron, hence the name of this project. So what biochar is, it's a special type of charcoal. It's just carbon, it's just wood burned at a really high temperature in the absence of oxygen. And it creates this charcoal called biochar that has really, really high surface area and does a good job at removing bacteria. It's pretty similar to like a Brita filter, that you drinking water out of. And then the other thing we add to this sand and charcoal mix is iron filings, like literally just filings of iron metal. And we put that in there because it binds to phosphorus. So you have the iron filing binds with the phosphorus and removes those nutrients from the water. So how that works is we just divert the creek flow of all the kind of untreated stormwater through this filter and then pipe it right back into the creek. So I have a schematic. There's a lot going on in this picture, so I'm going to kind of walk through the elements one by one. But I just wanted to say this is the very rough concept sketch. So this is the approximate placement and size of the filter, but all of these elements are subject to change. But I think it's a good diagram to walk through kind of what you'll see out there and how it works. So the first thing is that little round rectangle. What that is a berm. We're proposing to put a berm in the middle of the channel, but it will have a 24-inch culvert opening in it. And this is a very small creek, so the water could just easily continue to flow right through that culvert. But inside that culvert, we'll have a valve, a gate valve. We'll run power to it, and we can set it up on a timer and can open and close it. So when you close that valve, it will allow that creek to back up and form a pond and kind of spill over the banks into the filter. So that brown area, that's the sand, the iron, and the biochar media. And then the filter is about 15 inches deep. So all the water percolates through that 15 inches of media, and then it's collected in those dashed green lines. That's just slotted PVC drain tile. So the filtered water enters that drain tile, and it's kind of sloped downward downstream and collected in this solid green line, just solid PVC pipe, where it's piped back into the creek downstream of that berm, now cleaner with less bacteria and less phosphorus in it. So this type of design allows us to continually monitor how this thing's working. At the berm, we can sample the untreated water and then the water coming out of that PVC pipe and compare the levels of pollution in them. And then we would set up that valve to open and close. It'll depend on how much water flow, but say every 12 hours, it will open and close and the filter will be active. And then you'll open it up and the creek will just flow like normally and the filter will dry out. And you close it again, treat more water, and the cycle continues. So if It's a little confusing looking at that overhead view. There's also, we call it cross section. So that red line, if you were to slice through that filter with a knife and kind of look at it from the side view, this is what it looks like here on the bottom. So here's your creek. It's normally about 6 inches deep. We close that valve, it'll flood up and it will spill over the side into the filter, collected in those drainage tiles and sent downstream. That's kind of how it works. So after this thing is constructed, what our end goals are is to reduce total phosphorus in this system by 23 pounds a year. And I know that's kind of an abstract number and you probably don't think of phosphorus in pounds. So to just provide some context, 1 pound of phosphorus can lead to 500 pounds of algae growth. So 23 pounds of phosphorus is over 11,000 pounds of algae that we'd be preventing through this filter every single year, forming in Epiphany Creek, Coon Creek, in the downstream Mississippi River. So reducing the algae blooms, free in the water. And then we'll reduce E. coli by an estimated 80%, which is 404 billion colonies of E. coli a year. And I don't know how to provide context for that number. It is just abstract, but it's a lot of bacteria. As far as timeline, we're right now in kind of spring, summer 2022 in the planning and design phase. We're looking to construct this as early as this winter and have it fully done and operational by summer. The construction window will definitely not be, an entire 6-month period. It will be more like 4 to 6 weeks of heavy construction, and then it will just take time to do revegetation and heal the site and that sort of thing. But completely out of there by summer 2023 is our goal. So I guess in summary, some key take-home messages is that we have a need to reduce both our nutrient and our bacteria pollution in Coon Creek in order to meet those required federal and state standards. And there's a big opportunity here in Robinson Park to treat the water coming out of Epiphany Creek. It's a good place for a stormwater filter. We have the funding to do it. So project planning is underway, and I guess now that's where I'm going to turn it over to you guys, and we'd love to hear any feedback you may have or any questions you may have. We do have an active project webpage that we will continually update throughout this process. And then our contact information is at the bottom of the screen. So with that, any questions, comments, concerns? Will it do anything for nitrates is the question. Biochar is actually known to reduce nitrogen levels. It's not something we measure in our water, but it will likely be reducing nitrates as well. So that will help the Gulf of Mexico.
One of the benefits we have with nitrates is that Coon Creek doesn't actually suffer from that issue too much. We do have some agriculture in our headwater systems that contribute, but you saw that large area, most of that's urban residential area, which doesn't contribute as much as agricultural communities, which is why we're focusing on phosphorus in this case. So our water quality sampling, we have nitrogen, of course, in the system, but phosphorus is the more key element that we have in our system. So that's why Justine's talking about how we contribute to that.
Yeah, phosphorus is what's kind of controlling our algae growth in our freshwater systems locally.
So you talk about algae growth, that means you'll be able to see that in water.
Yes.
If you see it, that would be
Yes. Right. Yeah, you can definitely see algae blooms more in slow water, in wetlands, in ponds, and lakes. So it is in Coon Creek, and there is algae there, but it's moving and it's suspended, so it doesn't kind of stack up on the surface like it does in some ponds. But Coon Creek itself is considered impaired. It doesn't meet the federal standards for phosphorus. It's supposed to be at 100 parts per billion, and it's closer to 200. So it's almost 2 times the kind of the state and federal standard.
So there is an algae problem Coon Creek, just west of Colbert. Before it goes back to Colbert, you get Colbert, it's a section about 40 feet. So on occasion there, that's pretty well outside.
Yeah, when there are kind of slow water habitats upstream of bridges and backwater, you can definitely see it in the creek there. You're right. Yeah,
So I guess just to reiterate that the green box that was wrong about like the proposed site, like our house is back up to that. So we are just. We're on the back there, so like our. Our main concern would be that we would lose all the trees back there. So we enjoy the privacy aspect of it. And don't want to just have all the unnecessary trees. So you're saying that the project itself is not going to fill that whole green box.
correct. Yeah, the filter itself will be about 10,000 square feet. Of course, there will be additional tree removal for construction access to get equipment and to get media in there. And I guess this, so that that kind of shows the construction, the planned access off of egret into the filter. But there will definitely be at least a 50-foot buffer behind your property line. All the trees that will stay, and then we'll save as many trees as we can, but there will be tree removal for the filter footprint. And we did do a tree survey back there and have some of that information.
Is the dotted line up there, is that the that currently goes back there?
That's the creek, and the path is just adjacent to the
Okay,
creek.
so it's gonna be on one side.
The filter.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the path right here. It's hard to see.
Okay.
And then there's the creek, and then the filter will be opposite the creek, and then all this will still be untouched trees.
So here's our property line here. Here's the limits of their construction.
Okay.
And then, so here's all the trees that have left place.
Yeah, we'd like to know a little bit more about when you say screening. A lot of what you have now, like Christine said, we did a tree survey, and there's of course majority of box out there, but they're mature, high canopy trees, so they're not providing a lot of screening with the canopies being tall. A lot of underbrush, mainly buckthorn, but some other stuff that's more a line of sight when you're on the ground in your backyard. So we're removing the large trees is one thing, but also there's not going to be the buckthorn and other things down below. So along the edge is we have an opportunity to plant some new trees when we're done.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's of course, privacy is anywhere you are, but do you see it mainly just when you're in the backyard using your space, or from like your second story window? Because that's really important for us to know kind of when you select tree species for revegetation, how high up do you want that screening canopy to be, more toward the ground and walking around, or up from your second story window, a little higher up? Yeah, we're gonna keep.
I am the third house in.
Sure.
And I can't, like in the summertime, we can't see Robin light,
Yeah.
street light at all because of all of the foliage and everything. And you're right, not all of it is like the big trees.
Right.
It's just brush. But it was, so did you say you are going to clean up some of the buckthorn that's back there as well?
Well, it's a little
Is it
buck.
back there?
Because of this, it'll all have to get cleared in order to build it. We can't select cut or anything like that. So, but as we replant around the perimeter, maybe you can go back to the other map. We have a lot of flexibility along this edge. We won't remove any mature trees in this area or even buckthorn.
Okay.
But along this edge, we try to replant stuff. Now we have to work through this area with trucks and stuff being accessed. But when we're done, we can restore this. Grass, flowers, trees, shrubs, evergreens would be another one, like a balsam fir or something like that. You know, give you some colors and vibrancy. So we have some options there. So we'd like to communicate with you as we move forward. We have your contact information. So when we get further in the design, we can show you that. You're really nice. Sure. Yep.
I have a question about the height. So that wire thing, that's allotted to the drainage tile. Is that gonna be like open space? Is that just gonna be clear vegetation? I don't.
In the end, this kind of brownish color is gonna look like it's can you go back to the others that we had. So you see this big sandbox looking thing? That's what it's gonna look like from the top. And so underneath this 15 inches of media, there's some pea gravel with those pipes going out, and they come into this little manhole underground. So that way, I would never encourage kids or anything to go recreate on it, but if they did, they would just be basically a large sandbox. So because of that, some vegetation, weeds and things might grow on that, but that's what it'll look like. It's kind of like a large sandbox. And then this darker black color is because of that biochar. That's what makes it look like that. So you won't see any of the pipes.
Like electric filter that's powered. That moves every 12 hours. Is that how it's associated with that? How much? What is that?
In this case, we don't need a pump. We're going to rely on gravity. Yeah, the valve itself is going to be pretty low energy. So like the pump-based system would have kind of a vibrational, kind of almost filter or like a fountain light. This valve is going to be turned on like every 8 hours on off. And so I can't imagine you can be able to hear it unless you're right there. It's not going to hum or anything.
Yeah, and it will open and close in the matter of like a second or two. We have those actuated valves that's more, it's just like, and that's it, then it's closed. Yeah.
Are you thinking like a jam system?
Oh,
Yeah, and that's the best way for us to explain it is like a dam. When we say flooding, but we're talking 15 inches of media, we want to make sure that if you go back to the other map of the location, when there's enough fall, egress pipe that comes underneath the road and here vertically, that we can flood up this area and it won't affect anybody beyond Eager. So people live on the other side of Eager on Epiphany Creek, and they don't want to see the creek come up or water come in their backyards anymore. So our ability to divert this over is because we're only talking a couple of feet. There's enough fall here. That's what we can take advantage of. We don't need a pump or anything because we have enough fall in this area. So when we say flooding, we just mean exactly in this site. Blue area is the exact. So this site's favorable for us because it allows us to do that right on site. We don't need an expensive pump or a loud operating system or control panels and things like that. So this system works really well here because of those features on the site.
In other words, it would go down as a creek.
Yeah. Yeah, it won't affect anything. And that's the nice thing too, is that if it were to plug up or obstruct, it would just go right past it as though it was never there. We could open that valve, and the creek will go on as it is today. We just don't treat the water.
or even if the valve gets stuck closed, the berm is only a couple feet high, so the water would just spill over it.
Yeah, very. As far as like risk of flooding or drainage, we just use those terms because that's the best way to visualize what's physically going to happen.
So as far as the construction goes, so my mom is actually in the neighborhood. So we already did that whole like with the construction stuff, like there was times we were looking for like a house listing. And like different stuff. A little bit. And so I just wonder with our house. I mean, is it when is it gonna be like hours during the day that all like equipment stuff and things like that?
Yeah, I can work with you on that. So the city has actually ordinances on this that set date, time, hours, and whatnot of when we can actually operate. So like Justine was saying, we're targeting this for winter construction. So we're hoping for frozen ground, and winter is sun doesn't come up till later in the day. It doesn't. So our operating hours are just when the daylight will let us. And so we take advantage of that to allow our contractors a little bit slower in the winter time. Problem is the frost. If they got to break through that, that's where some of that vibration comes in. And so that's where we work with those contractors to make sure that we're far enough away from your home. And then if they can get in there like right before the frost sets in to grip the ground and get it prepped and then do the rest of the construction afterwards, we'll work with them.
Okay. Will we get an update with it actually like gonna start? I know you guys are still planning and everything.
Oh yeah, I'm going to bombard you with mailings. I apologize. Yeah. And our project website will be continuously updated, and you'll have our contact information. We really like a relationship to know exactly what's going on up there.
How do you know?
Well, it's 15 inches of media plus another 15 inches, so that's like 3 feet. And we're trying to take advantage of these white lines of existing ground up. We have to over excavate kind of on top of it on the west. So 5 feet is kind of our max. One challenge we have in this area, I don't know if you've dug out there, but you have nice thick topsoil and then you hit this weird foot or two of clay and then sand below that. So our challenge for construction moving forward in the design is determining how to physically construct this. Once you get through that clay, you hit water. And so we have to build this in a way that water's not coming up either. So we're likely going to put in a liner, like just a piece of, like rubber liner to keep groundwater at bay in this area. So that's one of the design elements that we're going to be looking into in the near future, which means that to get that homed in the next month or month and a half, we'll have to bring out a drill rig. It's just like a piece of equipment to bore down and see what the soils of where that groundwater is and all that stuff. So you guys might see that piece of equipment out there. Usually takes them like half a day or less to just drill a couple of holes along the street to tell us exactly what's going on in there. So you guys will see that next month, month and a half. And once we know those details, we'll know exactly how to design. That's what the engineer is really good at figuring it out.
And we do have a sign on site. I don't know if you've seen it next to that trail on the opposite side of the creek. So we will try to post updates in that as well. I mean, there's like a meeting invite in there, and we'll swap that out for fact sheet and eventually a construction schedule, as those details come to be known.
Is that walking trail gonna be closed?
I don't see any reason for that to be. The one issue I have from construction logistic issue, get away from just steam water quality and my construction. But for that heavy equipment to come in off of E-grid is where I'd like them to come, but that's a busy road. So if it's safest for them to come in off of this and then like bridge the creek with a culvert or something like that, that might be the case. And that would mean that the trail be temporarily closed for safety. But just the spur, this section of the trail that goes down remain open. So we would navigate that hurdle later, figure out what the contractor needs to access for the safest for the pedestrians and for the road traffic with that intersection there. There's some utilities I hate for a dump truck that hit the telephone pole or something like that. So those logistics will come in the near future. But for now, we're anticipating them accessing from that yellow line where it's part of that. There's not a lot of material coming in on the site. It's not like there's going to be truck after truck. It's going to be relatively easy. It's a lot of on-site and a lot of trucks.
What is the size of the one of them? Just for like scaling.
Yeah.
Is it for a lot? Like what is the size of the other one in comparison?
It's 67 feet by 300, so that's like
It's about the size of the
24,000. This is less than half of the size of that one.
Yeah, you know how that Woodcrest one has like a black side and tan side, just one of those sides. Yeah.
And a lot more trees here to block the.
Fewer frisbee.
And you said that it'll be 50 feet away from property.
Yeah, we're trying to keep that 30-foot buffer at least. We can do more. But
Like,
sure. Yeah, and that's where we have some flexibility. One thing that'll have the engineer consider is that we're taking material out of the ground that we kind of have to get rid of. So we can haul it off site. But we just need to we're kind of done when we constructed this. We could use that material, we take out of a hole and make a furrow. We'll talk to the city, see if that's allowable. And that might allow our shrubs to be up a little higher, kind of add a little height to that screen.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just don't want to cut off the drainage, the low kind of wetland area at this point. I want to make sure that continues to drain. So we'll investigate that more. I don't want to give any guarantees, but that's something that I'm going to have the engineer look at as a design alternative to see if we can. It might save us some money leaving that material on site, which means we can invest more in the revegetation plan, and then go from there. So we'll be coming up with a few options and maybe approaching you to see what you find desirable.
So are you guys next door neighbors on Absett or one house between you? Okay, so the third and fifth house or something. Okay.
we're excited.
I bet.
Yeah,
I'll let you know when our weekly progress meetings are, so you can come out with your hard hat. Tell the backhoe operator where to go.
We had 3 readings.
Project from last year.
Well, this is great.
That was my project.
Okay. Well, it's current. Thank you very much.
is there anything else that's missing in this portion of the park or that's an issue here that could be related to water? Be addressed in this project you guys know about?
Yeah. Any other questions for us? Thank you, Justine. You have our contact information. We'll keep that website updated. It says in the next month and a half to see a rig potentially. It might be in and out before you even know. Just to kind of test our soils. We can get some more design.